You can't retire with just $1 million. That's what somebody actually said to me a few days ago, and I was completely baffled. They felt like $1 million in their investment accounts wasn't going to be enough for them to retire on. Now, obviously, if somebody wants to spend $500,000 a year, $1 million won't last for a 30-year retirement. But this was just a regular guy. He drove a slightly older car, he lived in a modest house, and he felt like $1 million wasn't going to be enough. Today, I'm going to walk you through a complete retirement plan for a couple with exactly $1 million in their investment accounts. We'll look at their income sources, their spending, their goals, and whether their math is actually going to pan out in their favor. Now, before we dive in, I just want to be clear, this is a sample client profile. I've created it to illustrate what retirement planning looks like for somebody with about $1 million. Results here are hypothetical. Your situation, almost certainly different in some way. But watching how this analysis unfolds can help you understand what questions you should ask about your own retirement. So let's get into it. Meet Patty and Rob. They're both 64 years old. They're ready to retire. Their kids are grown, out of the house, and on their own. Patty and Rob's main goal here is pretty straightforward. They want to know if they have enough to comfortably retire, live the life they've been living without running out of money. Let's look at what they're working with. This is their profile in Roth Capital. You can see here they have $1 million in their investment accounts. Let's jump over to the blueprint page here for a slightly different view. Their investment accounts are in green. They have $1 million and it's broken down like this. $750,000 between Rob's 401k and Patty's IRA. They each have a Roth IRA. They've done well there. Those total 150 grand. And then together they have $100,000 in a joint taxable brokerage account. Beyond that, they have $40,000 in their checking and savings in total. And that's serving as their emergency fund. Now, all of their accounts right now are invested at a 60-40 portfolio. So 60% stocks, 40% bonds, and cash. In terms of their other assets, they have a $350,000 home. They've got an $85,000 mortgage left on that. They refinanced back in 2019, and that was at 4.25%. So all told, with property tax and insurance on this house, they're spending $1,600 a month. Beyond that, they don't have any credit card debt. They pay it in full each month, so that's good. All right, so let's talk about where their income is coming from. They're ready to retire, so we didn't build the plan here in Roth Capital to assume they're going to get any more money from working. They're looking to claim Social Security at age 65. You can see that for both of them. And they'll claim right on their birthday in the software. Now that's 2 full years before their full retirement age at the age of 67. Combined, these two benefits are going to be about $43,000 per year, and I'll show you more on that in a minute. Could they get more by waiting? Absolutely. Delaying to 67 would give them their full retirement benefit. Waiting till 70 would give them an even larger check thanks to the delayed retirement credits, but that doesn't matter here. The Mitchells made their decision. They want that money now so they can enjoy their early retirement years while they're still healthy and active. Now, they don't have a pension. We would put it on this screen if they did. So this Social Security benefit plus withdrawals from their portfolio are going to have to cover everything they want to spend in retirement. So let me show you what that looks like. We're going to head to the retirement cash flow screen here. Let's talk about what they actually need to spend. This is their cash flow map for 2026. You can see here, they're each receiving a partial year of Social Security payments. That income comes in and it gets divvied up across the various expenses in their life. Their flexible living expense number is $4,000 a month, or $48,000 per year. This covers groceries, utilities, transportation, dining out, entertainment, all of that sort of stuff. With their housing costs and their healthcare costs, as well as an annual vacation, the Mitchells are spending about $82,000 per year. Now we're running about a $57,000 deficit in this first partial year of retirement. Let's go out a year to 2027. You can see Social Security payments have expanded because they're both receiving a full year, and their overall deficit has shrunk to about $40,000. The expenses have increased modestly with inflation. Out one more year to 2028, and the deficit has grown once more. We're still getting that full year of Social Security benefits, so what happened? Well, we introduced a new goal here. The Mitchells want to replace their car every 8 years. We estimate about $26,000 for that. So in the years where that happens, they're going to have to cover that with additional portfolio withdrawals. So 2027 is a more standard year with just regular expenses and a full year Social Security income for the Mitchells. Taking a look here, we're running that deficit of $40,000 per year after they're spending roughly $83,000. So that $40,000 withdrawal from their portfolio of about $1 million, starting them with an initial withdrawal rate right around that 4% mark. Pretty healthy. Now I want to show you something interesting. This screen here in Right Capital is the retirement income stability analysis. It shows us that 40% of the money that the Mitchells want to spend throughout retirement is coming from stable or guaranteed sources. For them, it's 100% Social Security. That's indicated in the dark blue bars that's running across the graph. The other 60% of the spending is going to have to come from savings withdrawals or portfolio withdrawals in their case. Now, this isn't necessarily a problem, but it does mean that their plan has some sensitivity to how the markets behave, especially in those early retirement years. Take a look here at the graph at where the majority of their spending in retirement is coming from. It's coming from these last 2 years in their plan right now. And that's because we're expecting the Mitchells to have long-term care expenses in the last 2 years of their plan. During the majority of their retirement plan, north of 50% of their annual expenses are covered by guaranteed sources, Social Security, in the years where they're not replacing their car. So here's the big question. Knowing their cash flow map, knowing the stability of their retirement income source, does it all work out for the Mitchells? Well, let's take a look. So according to the analysis, the Mitchells have a 73% chance probability of success, indicated right here. Now let me explain what that actually means, because I think these Monte Carlo simulations are widely misunderstood. 73% is not a prediction. The software is not saying that the Mitchells can take their hands off the wheels and they have a 73% chance of everything working out fine. What it's doing is it's going into the background, it's running 1,000 different scenarios. Different market returns, different inflation environments, different combinations of good years and bad years. Now, out of all those simulated scenarios, 73% of them result in Patty and Rob not running out of money before the age of 90. Think of it as a directional indicator, not a guarantee. This tells us that the plan is more likely to work out, but there's some optimization to be done. It tells us that there's meaningful risks here. 27% of the scenarios do not end well for the Mitchells. Now here's where it really gets interesting. I want to show you the confidence analysis that the tool gives us. And I call this the cone of uncertainty. So what are we looking at here? We're starting here today in February of 2026 when Patty is 64 on the left side of the graph. What you're looking at is the range of possible scenarios that the software is running. You can see that her age increases along the x-axis here, and the range starts to broaden as time proceeds on. Now, for the vast majority of the scenarios, all the way out here through their 60s, 70s, and even their 80s, the entire cone of uncertainty is staying positive above the x-axis. It's only in the last 2 years of the plan, when Patty turns 88 and those long-term care expenses start to kick in, that some of the scenarios here in the plan start to dip into the red. And that's why when we look at the why, it's almost entirely driven by potential long-term care expenses coupled with adverse market conditions in the final years of the plan that causes the plan to fail. And this is critical information to the Mitchells. The Mitchells' plan is not failing because they spent too much on travel or they bought too many cars. It fails because of possible healthcare costs later in retirement. And those are very different problems to solve for. Now, are there things that we can do to sharpen the plan and prevent a worst case scenario for the Mitchells? Yeah, of course there are. But that's not what this video is about. This video is to show you that just following generalities like you can't retire on $1 million anymore are not helpful for retirement planning. So, can the Mitchells retire today? Absolutely. Can they do so without proper planning? Absolutely not. Now this plan, it has a pretty safe trajectory for them and well into their retirement, but it's not going to be foolproof. The analysis here, it's only as solid as the conditions that I've built into the software. And I didn't go and pull those out of a hat. Those conditions are based on current and historical market data, but it doesn't guarantee the future will be the same. Now I want to show you something that really illustrates why retirement planning requires that you run more than one set of numbers. This is our stress test analysis. It shows how the Mitchells plan holds up under specific adverse scenarios. Not random simulations, but targeted what-if questions. On the left is the baseline plan here. You remember it's at 73%. Now you can see that all of these adverse scenarios negatively impact the Mitchell's plan, but they're not all created equal. Looking at the data here, it looks like a reduction in their Social Security benefit would have the biggest detriment to their retirement. That makes sense. Social Security is their only guaranteed source of retirement income. The next most impactful events to their retirement would be lower than average market returns, or lower than we're expecting in the software, or possibly higher than expected inflation rates would also cause a negative impact, reducing their plan between 60%, below 60%. Remember that only 40% of the Mitchell's retirement income is guaranteed. The other 60% is going to be exposed to whatever the market decides to do. Now what this tells me is that the Mitchells are on a relatively safe track for now, but they need to be adaptable to the changing conditions of the economic environment. So can you retire with $1 million? For Rob and Patty, that answer is yes. A 73% probability of success means their plan is more likely to work out than not, and we can certainly optimize it. Their Social Security provides a solid foundation for their retirement spending, and their overall spending level is reasonable for their current portfolio balance. But their plan has vulnerabilities. Market downturns in early retirement, long-term care expenses, increased inflation rates, or a reduction to their Social Security benefits are all real risks to their plan. With only 40% of their income coming from a guaranteed source, they're going to be exposed to a sequence of returns risk in the market that somebody with a pension might not be. The Mitchells are not in crisis, but they're also not going to be bulletproof. And this is the reality for a lot of people approaching retirement with $1 million in their accounts. The point of walking through this example is not to give you a magic number or a simple yes or no answer of how you can retire. It's to show you what thoughtful retirement planning actually looks like. It's understanding where your plan is strong and where it's vulnerable, and what questions you should be asking about your own situation. If you found this helpful, I'd really appreciate you subscribing to my channel. I put out videos like this every week, breaking down real planning concepts with actual examples. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Jordan Drinkhouse, and I'll see you in the next one.